Breaking news out of Saudi Arabia, where just moments ago, President Trump made a big announcement. He revealed he is ending U.S. sanctions on Syria. It's a major reversal in U.S. policy after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime back in December. Surprise announcement coming as the president takes his first major foreign trip of his second term.
Yeah, earlier in the day, Trump signed what the White House is calling a historic and transformative agreement, a Saudi pledge of $600 billion worth of investments in the United States. Let's take you now live to Riyadh with CNN's Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, what more is President Trump saying about all of this? He made a joke about $600 billion not being enough. He wants $1 trillion.
He does want $1 trillion, Boris, and we will see if the math adds up to that by the end of his week-long trip here. It is unlikely that it will, but never mind the specific number. The White House is shining a light on the deal-making that is underway here. The U.S. investment that is coming out of this trip, some of it's already been announced, so the math and the accounting of it certainly is unlikely to reach $1 trillion. But as the president was speaking just a short time ago to a Saudi U.S. investment conference, really featuring some of the top CEOs of the world, as well as many Saudi leaders, he made a bit of a surprise announcement about a change in foreign policy on Syria.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. The sanctions were brutal and crippling and served as an important function, nevertheless, at the time, but now it's their time to shine.
And we are learning that President Trump is also expected to meet briefly tomorrow morning here in Riyadh with the new Syrian leader. That would be the first such meeting between the U.S. and Syria. This comes, of course, in a wake of other foreign policy headlines that the president also made. He said he is optimistic about nuclear talks with Iran. He also talked about the Abraham Accords, of course, which was a central piece to his foreign policy from his first term in office that was effectively blown up by the effects of 2023 in Gaza and Israel, the war that, of course, is ongoing. But the president said he will give Saudi Arabia time, effectively, to reach the president's dream, in his words, of normalizing relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. But it is very notable that President Trump is not going to Israel on this stop. He, of course, has met with the Prime Minister Netanyahu several times, a couple times in the Oval Office. But that is a key difference from his first foreign trip 8 years ago during his first few months of his first term in office. He did stop in Israel directly after this. This time he is not. That is notable. But the president is making his way across the Middle East. He'll be attending a dinner of leaders here shortly as he continues his first foreign policy trip of his second term. Boris and Brianna.
Jeff Zeleny, thank you so much for the update from Riyadh. Let's dig deeper into this news with CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak Ravid. He's also a politics and foreign policy reporter for Axios. Barak, great to see you as always. There are several new agreements being announced today, especially on military cooperation between the United States and Saudi Arabia. There's also a personal side to this, right? Trump's business ties and his family's business ties to these Middle Eastern powers. Walk us through what's at stake with this visit.
I think what we see in this visit today, and we will see tomorrow in the next few days, is how Trump is putting all of his effort, capital, and money both on the Gulf and the different Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. Those are the places. This is the go-to for Donald Trump, both on the economy, both on the military, and both on diplomacy. And we saw it in his speech, the amount of news that Trump made in his speech, and the fact that he was willing to make such a statement about lifting sanctions from Syria. And he said, I'm doing it because Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman asked me to. And then he gave, big policy headlines on Iran and on Gaza. I think this trip is just the beginning, but it's going to be even more and more interesting as we go by later this week.
There's no question, Barak, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is watching this, and some of this is designed so that he feels pressure from the United States. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if it's if Trump designed it like that, if it's intentional, if it's part of its strategy, but it is definitely the result. Okay, because Netanyahu finds himself on the outs. He looks at what's going on in Saudi Arabia, and he thinks to himself, "I could have been there," because for months before October 7th, and even after October 7th, even more, the Biden administration and then the Trump administration told Netanyahu there is an opportunity with Saudi Arabia. And don't get bogged down with this war in Gaza. And Netanyahu, for domestic political reasons, decided to get bogged down in the war in Gaza. And while Netanyahu is stuck in Gaza, the rest of the region is continuing to move forward. And we see that in Saudi Arabia today. We'll see that tomorrow with the meeting between Trump and the president of Syria, someone that Netanyahu made every effort to tell Trump that he's not a good guy. Trump doesn't seem to care. We see the same thing with the direct talks with Iran. We see the same thing with Trump going and getting out a U.S. hostage above Netanyahu's head. I think we're seeing it. I don't know if it's intentional, but definitely the result is that Netanyahu finds himself more isolated than ever.
And specifically what you brought up, the release of Idon Alexander, the timing, of course, is notable given that this release, as we're watching video of it, happened just as Trump was arriving in the Middle East. And this development came about apparently because of a critical back channel, the leader of Arab Americans for Trump. Walk us through how this happened.
So this is a fascinating story, I have to say. So something like 2 weeks ago, a Hamas official in the Hamas leadership outside of Gaza contacts Bshara Bakbak, the person who was the chair of Arab Americans for Trump. This is the guy who got Michigan for Trump, or at least says that he got Michigan for Trump when he rallied Arab American voters to move from voting for Joe Biden to voting for Donald Trump. And he gets this call from this Hamas official, and this Hamas official tells him, "Connect me to Steve Witkoff, the White House envoy. We want to discuss the hostages issue and the war in Gaza." And he contacts Steve Witkoff. At the beginning, Witkoff tells him, "I don't even know who you are. How do I know you're legit?" It takes a few days for him to prove that he's legit. And then there are at least 20 messages being passed between Witkoff and the Hamas leadership in Qatar through this guy, Bshara Bakbak. And it ended with this deal to release Idon Alexander, the last living American hostage in Gaza, for free. Hamas released him only to be on Trump's good side and without getting anything in return.
It's fascinating, especially given what you brought up, the dynamic between Trump and Netanyahu, and in light of the way that he's treating MBS and doing what MBS asks on Syria, just seemingly as a favor. Barak Ravid, always appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining us.